Namaste.
Namaste.
What a delight it's today to have Sikyong Penpa Tsering. Sikyong would mean an elected leader, a political leader. And it's a delight to have Sikyong Penpa Tsering in our campus and the president of the Central Tibetan Administration. He's a respectful global statesman, a cultural custodian, and a symbol of resilience. We'll delve into the ever-evolving Indo-Tibet relationship, the living philosophy of His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, the future of Tibetan medicine and language, and above all, spirit of the people who have turned exile into a profound example of dignity and hope. Sikyong Penpa Tsering, it is an honor to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor for me and a privilege to be present at your prestigious university.
Thank you, sir. India has been home to Tibetans in exile for over 6 decades now. How would you describe the current state of the Indo-Tibet relations, not only politically, but also emotionally and culturally?
Now, our relation dates back to more than 13, 14 centuries, when Tibet was a huge empire between 7th to 9th century. The first religious king of Tibet sent his minister to invent a Tibetan script, because we must have had a spoken language. And then the Tibetan script that we use today came from the Indian Devanagari Gupta and Brahmi script. So we are very linguistically closely linked to India. Tibetan religion, Buddhism, also came from India in 8th century. We follow the Nalanda tradition, Buddhism. Through Tibet, it has spread to Trans-Himalaya, to Mongolia, and to the Russian republics of Kalmykia, Tuva, and Buryat. So it's because of the Buddhism that came into Tibet, it spread to other regions of Central Asia. And of course, we will discuss about medicine as well.
Yes.
But from 8th to 10th century, we must have had the first international medicine conference in Tibet for 2 years. So one thing what we did was, on the advice of Shantarakshita, the monk who came to preach Buddhism in Tibet in 8th century, since we already had our language, Shantarakshita advised that why don't you translate every available Sanskrit and Pali Buddhist text into Tibetan. So on his advice, for 5 centuries, between 8th to 13th century, Tibetan translators transcribed every available Sanskrit and Pali Buddhist text into Tibetan. So that is why Tibetan language is the only one. It's considered as one among the 15 oldest languages in this world. We just came out with a dictionary which has become the most voluminous dictionary with 223 books. So the cultural, linguistic, religious relationship between Tibet and India are much, much older than any of our relations with any other countries, including China. So when we lost our country in 1950, or 51 rather, because according to international law, after we were forced to sign the so-called 17-point agreement, that they say Tibet became a part of China. So that is according to treaties or international treaties, accepted or not, all that. But then His Holiness the Dalai Lama tried to live under those provisions for 8 long years, from 51 to 59, and then Chinese government trampled on all the provisions of the 17-point agreement. That's why His Holiness had to come into exile, and India was the natural choice to seek asylum. Of course, there were a lot of difficulties also, because those days India was just 3 years after independence. Nascent democracy, Pandit Nehru's ideals of having a non-alignment movement, also added to all the intricacies of issues those days. So when we came into exile, Indian government offered us shelter, sanctuary, hospitality. That is why at that time, it was said that some 85,000 Tibetans preceded or followed His Holiness. Now we are only about 70,000 Tibetans in India, about 10,000 in Nepal, and the rest of 60,000 Tibetans are spread across 26 different countries around the world. So about 40% of Tibetans now live outside India and Nepal.
Very interestingly trained, sir. But His Holiness the Dalai Lama remains a universal teacher of compassion. And in your close association with him, what message do you think he still wants to give the youth, especially in India and the Northeast, to carry forward?
I think his messages are universal. His Holiness's messages are very simple also.
And simple is the most complex things, to do things simply.
It depends on how complex you make out of simple matters.
Seriously.
But His Holiness always says, I am one among the 8 billion people in this world, just as you are, just as I am, and just as all of us are, one among the 8 billion people. So he says, being one human being, he promotes oneness of humanity. Whether you are black, white, or yellow, green, whatever, every human being is same. Every human being have the same intellect.
True.
So oneness of humanity and a very secular approach to promote moral values.
Very true.
That's why he worked on a course like sea learning. If this can be implemented in any part of India, it'll be useful, because I find this as the greatest contribution of His Holiness to humanity. Whether you are a believer or a non-believer, sea learning is social.
How do you spell that?
Social, emotional, and ethical learning. There are schools that teach social and emotional learning.
Correct.
But His Holiness added ethical to that, because I remember accompanying His Holiness once to London, and there was a politician who came to meet with him. His first and immediate question was, Your Holiness, we have so much problem with youth. So it's not just youth in Assam or in the whole of India, it's all over the world.
All over the world.
Then His Holiness' immediate response was, everything is wrong with modern education. There is too much focus on materialism, competition, and all that. That this very little understanding of warm-heartedness, of compassion, of non-violence, and all these values that we should profess. So this is one message of His Holiness. And the second message, His Holiness always says, I am a simple Buddhist monk. He's a Buddhist practitioner, right? And as a simple Buddhist monk, my job is to promote religious harmony. Because religion and spirituality is supposed to bring peace of mind to people.
Of course.
But again, in this modern age, in the name of religion, there are so many conflicts.
You see what happens.
And that is why His Holiness always says, just like there is not one single medicine for 100 diseases, you have so many religions to cater to people with different mental inclinations and disposition.
Right.
So he led and participated in so many religious harmony conferences that he has friends across religions all over the world.
But from Dharamshala to Shillong and Guwahati, many Indian communities feel a deep bond with Tibet. Because I remember a couple of my friends were playing music concerts, for Tibet, to free Tibet. What role do you see India playing in Tibet's future, both diplomatically and as a civilizational ally?
India as a nation has its national interests also at heart. We have been very pragmatic in our approaches, because we kept saying if there has to be a resolution on the Sino-Tibet conflict, it can come only from China. Because India is not going to send its army to fight for Tibet, or NATO or the United States are not going to send their army to fight against the Chinese for the Tibetans. Everybody has their own national interests. And we try to reach out to the Chinese government as much as possible to seek a non-violent, negotiated, mutually beneficial solution that would be lasting. But then again, till such a time, when you have a person with a common sense at leadership of at the helm of affairs in China, we have to reach out to the international community.
True.
And there also we understand that the national interest of that nation comes first for that nation. They will not leave aside their national interest for the sake of Tibetans. So is the same case with India as a nation. It has its own national interest. And then they have to be also be responsible for what's happening around your country, whether it's in Tibet or Burma or Pakistan or Bangladesh or Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives, wherever.
Thank you so much. And to our viewers, may this conversation remind us that borders may shape history, but it's the people who shape humanity.
That's true.
And let us carry forward the spirit of understanding, dialogue, and peaceful coexistence.
True.
I am Sattyakee D'Com Bhuyan, signing off from this conversation with you. Till next time, please stay curious, stay compassionate.
Thank
Tashi
you.
Dalek.
Thank you, Tashi Dalek. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.